What is up, Moto Buddies? This is Mike from Moto Co, Baja Taco Tours. We've got a super rad, very special bike to profile for you. This is a 350 XCF. So this is 2020. And if you know anything about this bike, it is essentially a motocross bike. So it's the 350 SXF it came with hand flags and a kickstand and the other thing that differentiates the XCF is a 18-inch rear wheel instead of a 19. And this particular owner wanted a plated motocross bike. So what we did was we threw the dual sport conversion kit that we have at this, and we've made this now street legal plated bike. This is essentially a motocross bike for the street. Very, very special dual sport bike. And let's start up front here. We've got some very cool things on this. We try to keep this very specific to this owner and his use. Not interested in a lot of bling, very function oriented, and so we didn't really convert out a lot of stuff just for the sake of bling. Everything on here is really about function, and so we threw a couple of guards on. We've got the Acerbis fork shoe guards there. And as I roll through this caliper, notice that we've got a wheel speed sensor. That doesn't come on the motocross bikes. So we've added that, and that's going to be sending wheel speed data up to the Voyager Pro, which we'll look at in a minute. Notice that we've got wheel weights on here, and so we're counterbalancing out the wheel hop from the rim lock there. Those look really clean. SKF fork seal wipers. Moving up the forks. These are the forks in the suspension off his other bike. So this owner had his suspension previously dialed in, and he had a 17 350 XCF. So his suspension's so set up and specialized for him, we just decided to move that over to this bike instead of getting it all refurbished and set up for the new one. And I think it turned out really good. And so you've got cross compatibility with those suspension components from the 17 up here to, I think the 16 rather, up here to the 20s. Those are all interchangeable. Up here on the mask, we're real fans of the Moto Minded headlight bracket setup. So we've got that with the XL Pro headlight in there. And then moving up here to the cockpit area, we've got the Reflex racing bar guards. And a couple of special things about that. The killer app here is that he's got Don has designed these in such a way to allow for a steel cable. There's a braided cable that links the bracket here to the bar guard itself. So as the bars need to flex and move around, there's nothing binding. The bar guards themselves allow for a lot of mobility and adjustability. So you can change any of the angles here without having to bend bar guards. How many of you get a set of bar guards and then you have to bend, put them in a vise, tweak on them to get them to fit, or maybe they were set up exactly for that particular set of bars, and then you change bars and now you've got to rebend, and you never have to do that with these Reflex racing guards. They're almost like lifetime. You can swap them around to any bike. They're very special in that way. They're also very light and durable. We like these a lot, and you can get them anodized in a lot of different colors. And he's got hundreds of different combinations of artwork here for the rock guards. Real cool. We like these a lot. Voyager Pro, like we mentioned, and it's mounted on top of his triple clamp to a stout mount. So that's a Moto Minded stout mount right in there. That top plate, and then this wedge, 3D printed wedge, and the Voyager sits on top of that. So that whole assembly there turns out really good. Very cool, very clean. And all the wires are hidden. You really don't see any of that as you look down into the handlebar area. And then underneath there, we've got the Fastway 5. That's the version 5 of the steering stabilizer, and that turned out really good. That looks really good. Let's see what else. So we've got a Get ECU on here, and then our dual sport kit comes with a very low profile multifunction left-hand switch, and we've got this wired in such a way that it only operates electrically when the bike is running. A lot of dual sport kits will tap into the battery and will be on hot all the time, and then there's some sort of master switch that you have to flip, and ours gives you it's integrated into the bike electronics, so when the engine's running, all that goes live Right now it's all off, so that's a special feature to our kit. And then we've got the new double take scrambler size mirror. So what's unique about this is the typical mirror, the typical double take, which you're used to seeing a lot, has a very long arm right here. This extends out another, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches. And so Ned came up with the scrambler version. And this, let me tell you about this. This one is rated, I personally rate this to 100 miles an hour. The other one about 75. So that means the wind at about 100 miles an hour isn't enough. This is stable, and a little bit above that, and it starts to deflect and push itself back. The other one, the longer arm, at about 65, 70 miles an hour, the wind starts to push it back. So this has got considerably faster speed in terms of just holding its position on the bars. And that's a new item that Ned's come out with in the last couple months. And he's got a ring in here. I didn't put that sticker on. There's a round reflective double tape sticker that goes in that little area right there. Let's see if there's anything else to cover. Down in here, in a minute, I'll splice in a section of the video that talks about the dual sport kit and all the wiring and how that all worked out. So you'll see that here at the end of this. Okay, so over here we've got the sick ass. This is the over-under start kill switch. That frees up real estate. So over here, instead of having the kill, we wanted to just have the map switch for the get. So combining them together like this, that frees up real estate. And so now we've got that spot over there for the map switch on the get. Very, very cool. Very nice, very clean. The whole bar setup is just real Sano. And that was the whole goal behind this project, is to just make this bike very clean, very simple, very efficient, not a lot of fussiness. There's not a lot to go wrong on this. Weight savings was key, and this will be a very reliable bike for this rider. Okay, so moving down, we already talked about the Fastway stabilizer there. Stock tank. He may opt for the bigger tank later, but for now, with the riding he's going to do, stock's fine. Looking at this system, so on the exhaust, we've got the FMF full titanium system. So notice how that's all bluing out from the heat cycles. That looks amazing when those titaniums start to do that bluing. And very clean, very, very nice fitting. Some of these in the past, some of the aftermarket pipes from some of the different companies don't quite mesh and fit to the bike really well. Sometimes you even have to modify them. This went on absolutely flawless, no issues whatsoever, very clean. This resonance chamber right here just fits nice up against the head. They made that power bomb section as big as they possibly can. You can see that they just really maximize the volume of that internal chamber. And they take all the space that they can, flows really well all through the mid-pipe section. And then, of course, you've got the super nice, super sexy back end of that. The muffler is beautiful. This particular pipe, we got it with the, you can't really see it, the resonator is there inside of this pipe, and it's Forest Service approved. So this is going to produce nice low to mid-range power. That's going to be an excellent off-road pipe. Stock seat, kept that on there. He might opt for something else later. Let's take a look at some of this stuff. We're going to go in depth in this later on in the second part of this video. Get ECU, traction control knob, and map switch. We already took a look at that. We've got some of the dual sport electronics in here, and most of that's living under this side panel. Let's see what else. Oh, here's a pro tip. When you mount your Get ECU underneath stuff so you can't really see it, and you've got your Wi-Fi box, which is in that panel, make a label maker and put your password on there so that you can easily get to that, see that it's not buried. All right, we talked about his suspension, so that's the swap out from the other bike. No mods in here. Skid plate, that's the Molecule. Very, very cool. We love the Molecule. Seth does a beautiful job on those. Super rugged, super light. Fastway on the Evo Air pegs. These are transferred over from his other bike, so they're beat up. And the low position, our rider's a little bit on the tall side. And also the Fastway drag link down there as well in this stock position. And then coming back here, we've got an axle block, Tusk axle block for a little bling and the ease of adjustability. If you've ever used one of these, there's a lot more ticks on this, and they're easier to see. So that makes adjusting the chain a little better. And then the Pro Moto billet. And if you notice, this is an older one. See, it's got that older logo that they haven't used for years. This was moved over from his other bike. So it's got a lot of miles on it. Stock gearing, stock tire. We upgraded the tubes in there to the ultra heavy duty tubes with slime front and rear, just for puncture survivability for out west. Notice that we have the fender here, the under fender, and then the lighting kit. So the motocross bikes do not have that, and you have to add that on. And there's no real good way to install that unless you replace the whole back end with the EXC rear clip, and we didn't do that. We just threw some screws in here. This bike's going to get a couple of stickers anyway, and they'll cover that up. So while that's not a completely, flawless look, it's very, it's just getting it done, get her done. And this rider may even throw a rack on here and do some BDR type riding with this bike. And so that's going to be covered over very likely with a rack and maybe some bags. So aesthetics back there probably wasn't the biggest concern. But take a look at this. So this is an integrated tail light, and we've got the blinkers and the brake light integrated into the one housing. So we don't have any external turn signals. And on the 20 fender, they just don't give you a lot of room. For visibility's sake, you'd have to mount the turn signals right here in this section, and there's no real meat on that to grab and to put your screws in there. So for the 20s, it's a bit of a problem. There's not a lot of real estate on that rear under fender. And so the real solution to that is this integrated light. And that's part of our dual sport kit, our conversion kit. And then we're big fans of the Enduro plate. That puts it on a little flexible hinge right there. It's kind of like a nylon, very heavy duty nylon. You can see that there, material. And then there's magnets. Oh, the lighting's not very good, but there's magnets here. And so when this thing pops off, it's held back into place with some very strong rare earth magnets. We like that. Those are cool, cool accessory. Okay, down here we've got the wheel weights again to counterbalance out the rim lock. Bulletproof designs on the swing arm guard. If you've ever seen that little plate before, that protects the two drop downs for the chain guide. These are super vulnerable, and some guys sometimes in hard enduro situations will knock one of those off. And if that happened, you'd have to either replace the swing arm or have that little drop down welded back on the bike. And often it's never the same. The chain guard is a little wonky. So this is really good protection. It's just any rocks are going to continue to slide by that. Moving up here, all we did on the primary gear was we just threw on a Dirt Tricks dome washer. That is a huge upgrade. It's a very overlooked thing. In fact, I just had a bike in here the other day without many hours on it, and he was leaking oil out of that primary gear. And the reason is the stock dome washer just loses its preload, loses its tension. And as soon as that happens, that sprocket can slide around, and then the O-ring and the seal assembly behind there will allow oil to escape past it. And so he was slinging oil all over his chain. And so if you've got a low hour bike and you're just puking oil out of that, the first thing you may want to try before you pull that all apart is to just check that dome washer. And we threw that on and it fixed it. So that's a very overlooked item on these bikes. And then up here, we've just added a Golan fuel filter for him. And that's just to give him a little extra protection for his injector, keeping it clean. And that might be about it. We've got a vented airbox, an Acerbis vented airbox. So this video will wrap up with the second part as it goes into the overview of the dual sport kit. And so I'll sign off here and let that second part tell you everything you want to know about that. So if you've got any questions about this bike, any of the products that we use or any of the products we make that we put on this bike, let us know in the comments or send us an email or shoot us a call. Happy to talk to you. And as always, go out and get some adventure.